Welcome to another video, Purple Political Talk here. Today is Wednesday, June 23rd, 2021, and today we're going to be discussing another 2024 presidential election scenario. And this scenario would be a real bloodbath of an election just because of how unpopular and insanely radical both of these candidates are. On one side, we have Representative Marjory Taylor-Greene. On the Republican side, known conspiracy theorist. She is a big supporter of the QAnon conspiracy theory. And, Marjory Taylor-Greene has become a very big, discussion point and hot topic, controversial person amongst Republicans in the Republican Party. And then on the other side, you have Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, a known socialist in the Democratic Party. AOC is certainly not liked nationwide. However, with a race as wacky and matchup as wacky as this one, who even knows what could happen? But before we start this video, I want to remind you guys to like, subscribe, and turn on post notifications to be up to date with our latest content. And I also invite you guys to comment down any video ideas that you have down in the comments. And if I choose your video idea, I will give you a shout out. So that's what we got for that. So now that we got that out of the way, let's get started. So with this race, I really think that we're looking at the battle of the unpopular, and certain things are going to become very clear. Where the Democrats might do very well, originally that is going to end up going further to their side, and the Republicans, where they're doing very well, it's going to end up going further to the right. So I want to start off this matchup by just putting up the regular safe states we would traditionally put up for any presidential election matchup. And at this point, someone like Marjory Taylor-Greene could realistically lose the White House for the Republicans, and by big. Between Marjory Taylor-Greene and AOC, I think a lot of people, if there was a matchup between these two candidates, they would choose someone like AOC if you're more on the moderate side and independents. But, Marjory Taylor-Greene, although she might be somewhat of a radical Republican, and she might be, at points conspiracy theorist, she might do well in certain areas of the country where AOC will fail to, go out and get that vote. So this is our starting off map where both candidates have under 200 electoral votes. Marjory Taylor-Greene starts at 122. And Ocasio-Cortez starts at 188 with our safe states. If this race ever does happen, which I really highly doubt it will, just because I don't think these two candidates will win primaries anytime soon, this would be a bloodbath. AOC and Marjory Taylor-Greene absolutely detest each other. They think that the other is the devil's advocate on earth, literally. And I think that, if this matchup were to happen, if you guys thought that the 2020 election was bloody in any matter, and it was a very dirty election, expect this election to be a million times worse, because it's really the battle of the two opposite radical wings of the United States political spectrum. So I want to start by discussing the likely states, or states that actually would be added to the safe column. So if this is the matchup, I think places like Colorado, Virginia, and New Hampshire might be in the safe margin for Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. While if this is the matchup, I think places like Alaska would certainly also be in the safe margin for someone like Marjory Taylor-Greene. But now going into the so those are the states that would shift from a regular election prediction, and I think just because of the candidates' way of being and the opposition, it's really going to be a race of which one do I hate less in a lot of these states. So that is what is going to end up happening. Now, the likely states are going to be a little bit different. So for AOC, I think that in the likely states for her, she might be looking at places like Minnesota. She might be looking at places like Wisconsin. I think that although Marjory Taylor-Greene might get some appeal with some of those voters, the mere fact is that with a lot of Democrats are going to be super enthusiastic to go out and vote. And I think with the problem in these states, in Minnesota and Michigan, is that it's a lot of independent voters who choose elections here. And at the end of the day, I think most independents will end up going for AOC instead of Marjory Taylor-Greene, especially when it comes to these states. As for Marjory Taylor-Greene, I think that she's going to end up, sweeping a state like Georgia. Like taking it by around 5 points. Florida, she would take that. Democratic socialists are not liked in the state of Florida. She's going to take Iowa and Ohio. Republican states. I think that, Marjory Taylor-Greene would certainly do well in those states. Now, as far as the Democrats winning here, I think it's just unlikely based on how the party is moving. And again, if a Democrat was to win here against Marjory Taylor-Greene, they would have to be a more moderate Democrat. Marjory Taylor-Greene is unpopular, but I mean, AOC is probably as unpopular. And I think the other fact is that she's more well-known than Marjory Taylor-Greene. Marjory Taylor-Greene might be some crazy politician, but she's not as known as AOC. So she's not going to get a lot of the big backlash if she was at the same level of known or even more. So that's what I think for that race in those states. Now, going on to the lean states for AOC, states that I believe would go by less than 5%, I think AOC could end up winning in Nevada. That state probably wouldn't want to vote for someone like Marjory Taylor-Greene. And I think a lot of working voters in Nevada and Latinos would end up going to AOC. And, that brings me to my next point. I really think that this race is really going to become how well you can appeal to a certain group of voters. And I think another place that AOC could do that is in Marjory Taylor-Greene's home state. I think she can narrowly win that by around 1.5%. I think that in the state of Georgia, you're looking at a lot of African-American voters. And if that turnout is as high as it was in 2020, and I don't think to Marjory Taylor-Greene, even if it's her home state, she's going to do well. You saw people like David Perdue. You saw people like Kelly Loeffler, their home states, and they lost in that statewide Senate race. And I think with AOC on the ticket and a lot of people in Georgia actually knowing Marjory Taylor-Greene, and, in a lot of those Atlanta suburbs, which are really important, she's not going to do very well. And I think at the end of the day, someone like AOC could actually beat Marjory Taylor-Greene in her home state. As far as the Republicans go, though, these two districts, I would say that Nebraska is probably going to be gerrymandered, so that's going to probably go to Taylor-Greene by a slight margin. I actually do think that Marjory Taylor-Greene could actually take the state of North Carolina by a lean margin. I think that although AOC could probably go in and do very well in the very liberal areas, Marjory Taylor-Greene and her type of politics will do very well amongst rural voters, to the point where she might blow out AOC by like 80-20 in a lot of counties, 90-10. I think that she is more appealing to rural voters than someone like Donald Trump. So I really think that she will do very well in the state of North Carolina, although AOC could do very well there too. But I think that's where her lean states stop. I think that everything else is really up for grabs. Going on to the next states, in the state of Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Arizona, and then the state of Maine's 2nd Congressional District. These are all going to be in the tilt margins. I think that AOC narrowly wins in Maine's 2nd District, although it could be a very conservative district. I really do think that Marjory Taylor-Greene could come off a little bit as out of touch in this district. She's from the South, very, very far right, And, this district is conservative in Maine standards, but it's really a more moderate conservative. Like, it's a center-right district, not a right-wing district. And I think even with center-right, I think AOC probably could get closer to the views of those voters. And, I think it's a thing where the left sometimes can, afford going a little bit more further to the left because it's not really that noticeable. Because, the difference really between someone like Joe Biden, who is at the center left part of the party, and AOC, who's farther left, it's really not that felt. And I think it's more subtle than, the staunch difference between center right and someone like Pat Toomey, Ron Johnson in Wisconsin, or Mitt Romney in Utah, compared to someone like Marjory Taylor-Greene or Lauren Boebert, super conservative women. So I really think it's going to be something that's going to be very interesting to see. Now, when it comes to these last 3 swing states, I am really torn. I think that in the state of Arizona, I think the Democratic Party might narrowly edge it out. Although, actually, now that I'm thinking about it, Marjory Taylor-Greene probably takes that by a very small margin. I think that her messages around with like border security, that wing of the Republican Party is going to do very well. And, amongst the suburban voters, I'm really doubting if AOC is going to do very well compared to Taylor-Greene in a state like Arizona where, the border crisis is currently a big issue for them. So maybe I think Marjory Taylor-Greene can narrowly take that state. Now, when it comes to Wisconsin and Pennsylvania, I think that here, AOC could take both of these states very narrowly. I think that Marjory Taylor-Greene certainly has a chance to win against AOC in these states. However, I don't think it's that likely that she will. AOC has one big benefit, and that's it. That's that, while her viewpoints amongst her party, like I was saying, are further left than a lot of her members of her party, she is not really as, far from what a lot of these voters like. Marjory Taylor-Greene certainly does have that Trump appeal, but I think that one of the things she does have is worse, self-control in a certain way than Trump had. Trump, very notoriously had this Trump the person, defect to him. A lot of people did not vote for him because he was Trump the person, and the Trump personality was, just came off really strong. Marjory Taylor-Greene is a lot times worse, and I think even a lot of Republicans would probably vote for AOC over Marjory Taylor-Greene. So this is a very interesting matchup, and this is going to be one of the couple presidential predictions for a while. I mean, I'm going to be focusing, at least for the next week for you guys, a lot more on Senate races, and I'm going to do more interesting matchups. We're going to have like 4 candidates. So anything you guys want to see, I'm going to give you guys like a little bit more variety of content. I'm really sorry for just doing 2024 predictions. At this point, that's something I thought I needed to cover as I ease in back into daily posting on the channel. So guys, hope you guys enjoy the video. If so, please give it a huge thumbs up, like, subscribe, turn on post notifications to be up to date with our latest content. My final prediction between Representative Marjory Taylor-Greene, 246, Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, 292. Hope you enjoyed the video, and goodbye.